the coffee shops, they have Wi-Fi. People are constantly wanting to be plugged into what's happening. There's a lot of benefits to this. We get instant news updates all the time from around the world. We can constantly be in contact with our loved ones. We can also have, there's an access of wealth that we can find on the internet with just a click of a button. However, there are all these benefits, but there are also some potential risks that we need to familiarize ourselves with, especially to protect our young ones who navigate through this realm of this new world, and they need to kind of be guided to keep them safe. So we're going to be addressing several technological topics, and I want to kind of focus today on addressing teenagers and how these topics relate to them. So the first topic I want to talk about is the cell phone. And I want you just to take a minute, and I want you to think about how many text messages you send in one day. Maybe just write down a number. Maybe you send 10, maybe you only send 1 or 2, maybe you don't send any. But maybe just write down that number that you send in one day and then multiply it times 30, so we can kind of get a picture of about how many text messages you think you send in a month. So I'm curious just to see, just kind of calculate that number, or tell us just a general idea of about how many text messages you think you send in a month. Yeah. About 1,000? 5,000. 5,000.
I see about 3,000.
Okay. Well, I have some statistics here that were posted in the New York Times, and it's talking about the difference between the number of voice minutes used with the major phone companies such as AT&T versus the number of text messages that are used each month. And it's broken down between different age groups, and it's kind of hard to see, I'm sorry, but if you notice up at the top, you can see the first number is under age 18, and I'll read it for you, but this green bar represents the number of text messages that are sent, and on average, children under the ages of 18 are sending about 2,779 text messages a month, versus if you notice this blue bar, that's how many voice minutes they're talking on their telephone, which is only 631 minutes. So you can see there's a huge discrepancy with the younger generation that's coming up in how they're communicating with people. They're talking way less, and they're texting on their cell phones. And then you can see as the age groups increase, 18 to 24, 25 to 34, and going down, you can see that it's kind of more equal. People are communicating, speaking directly on their telephone and texting. And the older people get, they're speaking more and texting less. So it's just kind of interesting to see kind of how our society is shifting in the way that we're communicating. What do you think are some immediate effects of this phenomenon that's occurring? Can anybody think of some things that might happen?
Distraction.
Definitely. Why do you think?
You're interrupted. You're in the middle of something, and you're all constantly being interrupted by text, phone calls, emails, whatever.
Okay.
So it's hard to sustain your attention.
Any other immediate effects that we can think of? Anxiety, especially with I'm focusing on some effects for teenagers particularly, but anxiety is ranked really high because teenagers are constantly wanting to be in the loop with their friends, and they're worried about not being involved or not being knowing what's happening all the time. Distractibility in school. Another huge thing that's happening with teenagers is, you'll notice, and I noticed this with my nieces, is they'll be in the room physically with you, but they'll be hiding behind their phone and they're not really present, or they're not really interacting with the family or with the group that's there, and that can be very detrimental. I never thought about this until I started reading the research, but sleep deprivation with teenagers is also huge. And the people who conduct these studies, the research I'm going to share with you, they said that during the teenage years, there's critical brain development that's happening. It's almost like a second pruning that's happening in their brain, and teenagers actually require more sleep than children who are, say, like 7, 8, 9, 10. And what's happening is with these teenagers with their cell phones is they're constantly being interrupted and woken up during the night when they're receiving emails or texts from their friends, and it's affecting their development, and the researchers are worried that this might impact their physical well-being. So those are just some things to think about. And those are just some of the immediate effects. We don't even really know the long-term effects yet because this is a relatively new phenomenon that's occurring. So it'll be interesting to see as the research continues how this is going to impact the next generation long-term. Another thing that I can think of, this also impacts our lives in other ways. For example, as we could see from how the younger generations are communicating, there's less face-to-face communication. And this is also cause for concern because you think about they're not developing the social skills necessary to develop successful, healthy relationships for their future. I think about this generation going for an interview, for a job. Are they going to have the skills? Are they going to be able to communicate with that person? Are they going to have enough practice with that face-to-face interaction? So it's really interesting to think about, you know, how it's kind of shifting. What do you think are some basic guidelines that we need to be keeping in mind for ourselves, but especially conveying to our young children and our teenagers? Can anybody think of what a good guideline might be for when your children are using the internet?
Well, I think it depends what age they start, but I mean, most kids start early, and then you can control it still. You know, you can block certain areas and whatever, and then little by little, I mean, when they grow up, you know, you have to let it go. I mean, you set your standards still, but they need to know where the danger is, what they have to keep blocking, and what they can, well, go in and accept.
Exactly, and I like what you said, how they need to know what the danger is. And I think that's what our job is as parents, is we need to help them and educate them of what the dangers are, because a lot of them don't know. There's a lot of things, so I would just some general guidelines. Obviously, you would tell them to never display any personal information about themselves. They should use a screen name if possible. Never divulge any information about where they live, what school they go to. A lot of these sites, such as Facebook and things, people are, you know, logging into like these different locations around town, and that's really dangerous because you're telling people where you are, and that just sets up the stage for something, you know, dangerous to happen. So there's also, you know, privacy settings in most of these, like Facebook, on email, even on your home computers. You can beef up your privacy settings. And so I would encourage you to just kind of research how you can do that, what types of sites you can block, so that you can kind of filter some of the material that comes through your computer. And I attached at the back of a packet, there's some software on the white piece of paper that you can just, those are just, actually it's the second to last page. Those are just some ideas of some software that's available to kind of protect your home computer. But the most important thing I would have you to tell and teach your teenagers is that I would only teach them to post or write or email anything that they would feel comfortable saying face-to-face with someone. And the reason is because once you click send or once you hit post on, you know, some site, it's out of your hands, and that message or that information can then be forwarded on to whoever, and you've lost total control of that information. So it's really important to teach children, especially, the importance of only writing things that you feel very comfortable saying face-to-face with that person.